Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the next chapter of the Legend of Drizzt. As I said, this is going to be a little bit earlier today because I am working the evening curbside shift at the library tonight. 4 to 8, we are open if you want to come and pick up some materials or call us and let us know if there are any materials you would like to have us pull for you and get us to pick up. So, this is the time of the day that I was free to do this, so this is the time when it will be today. And it's going to be a 2-chapter day because, I am endeavoring to try and finish this one by, the end of next week at the latest. And, judging by where we are in terms of, completion of the book, I suspect we're going to make that date. But, I'm going to be working, to try and get us there, as possible. So, with that out of the way, we can hop into the next couple chapters here. So, what we missed in the previous chapter was a war discussion between the members of House Do'Urden, discussing the possibility of a rival house, possibly a house higher than them, moving up against them, and plans to enact in that event. So, that leads us into our next chapter, which is Chapter 18. Here we go. Chapter 18. The Back Room. "My greetings, Faceless One," the High Priestess said, pushing past Alton into his private chambers in Sorcerre. "And mine to you, Mistress Vierna," Alton replied, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. Vierna Do'Urden coming to see him at this time had to be more than coincidence. "What act has brought me the honor of a visit from a mistress of Aractinolith?" "No longer a mistress," said Vierna. "I have returned to my home." Alton paused to consider the news. He knew that Deanan Do'Urden had also resigned his position at the academy. "Matron Malice has brought her family back together," Vierna continued. "There are stirrings of war. You have heard them, no doubt." "Just rumors," Alton stuttered, now beginning to understand why Vierna had come to call on him. House Do'Urden had used the Faceless One before in its plotting, in its attempt to assassinate Alton. Now, with rumors of war whispered throughout Menzoberranzan, Matron Malice was re-establishing her network of spies and assassins. "You know of them?" Vierna asked sharply. "I have heard little," Alton breathed, careful now not to anger the powerful female. "Not enough to report to your house. I did not even suspect that House Do'Urden was involved until now when you informed me." Alton could only hope that Vierna had no detection spell aimed at his words. Vierna relaxed, apparently appeased by the explanation. "Listen more carefully to the rumors, Faceless One," she said. "My brother and I have left the academy. You are to be the eyes and ears of House Do'Urden in this place." "But," Alton stuttered. Vierna held up a hand to stop him. "We know of our failure in our last transaction," she said. She bowed low, something a high priestess rarely did to a male. "Matron Malice sends her deepest apologies that the unguent you asked for the assault... that the unguent received for the assassination for the... I'm having trouble with this line. Let me try that again. "Matron Malice sends her deepest apologies that the unguent you received for the assassination of Alton de Vere did not restore the features to your face." Alton nearly choked on the words, now understanding why an unknown messenger had delivered the jar of healing salve some 30 years before. The cloaked figure was an agent of House Do'Urden, come to repay the Faceless One for his assassination of Alton. Of course, Alton had never even tried the unguent. With his luck, it would have worked, and would have restored the features of Alton de Vere. "This time your payment cannot fail," Vierna went on, though Alton, too caught up in the irony of it all, hardly listened. "House Do'Urden possesses a wizard's staff, but no wizard worthy to wield it. It belonged to Nalfine, my brother, who died in the victory over de Vere." Alton wanted to strike out at her. Even he wasn't that stupid, though. "If you can discern which house plots against House Do'Urden," Vierna promised, "the staff will be yours. A treasure indeed for such a small act." "I will do what I can," Alton replied, having no other response to the incredible offer. "That is all Matron Malice asks of you," said Vienna, and she left the wizard, quite certain that House Do'Urden had secured a capable agent within the academy. "Dinan and Vienna Do'Urden have resigned their positions," said Alton excitedly, as the diminutive matron mother came to him later that same evening. "That is already known to me," replied Sinifee Hannett. She looked around disdainfully at the littered and scorched room, then took a seat at the small table. "There is more," Alton said quickly, not wanting Sinifee to get upset about being disturbed over old news. "I have had a visitor this day, Mistress Vienna Do'Urden." "She suspects," Matron Sinifee growled. No, Alton replied. "Quite the opposite. House Do'Urden wishes to employ me as a spy, as it once employed the Faceless One to assassinate me." Sinifee paused for a moment, stunned, then issued a laugh straight from her belly. "Ah, the ironies of our lives!" she roared. "I had heard that Dinan and Vienna were sent to the academy only to oversee the education of their younger brother," remarked Alton. "An excellent cover," Sinifee replied. "Vienna and Dinan were sent as spies for the ambitious Matron Malice. My compliments to her." "Now they suspect trouble," Alton stated, sitting opposite his matron mother. "They do," agreed Sinifee. "Massage patrols with Drizzt, but House Do'Urden has also managed to plant Dinan in the group." "Then Massage is in danger," reasoned Alton. "No," said Sinifee. "House Do'Urden does not know that House Hannett perpetrates the threat against it, else it would not have come to you for information. Matron Malice knows your identity." A look of terror crossed Alton's face. "Not your true identity," Sinifee laughed at him. "She knows the Faceless One as Gelrus Hannett, and she would not have come to a Hannett if she suspected our house." "Then we have an excellent opportunity to throw House Do'Urden into chaos," Alton cried. "If I implicate another house, even Bainry perhaps, our position will be strengthened." He chuckled at the possibilities. "Malice will reward me with a staff of great power, a weapon I will turn against her at the proper moment." "Matron Malice," Sinifee corrected sternly. Even though she and Malice were soon to be open enemies, Sinifee would not permit a male to show such disrespect to a matron mother. "Do you really believe you could carry out such a deception?" "When Mistress Vienna returns, you will not deal with a lesser priestess with such valued information, foolish De Vere. You will face Matron Malice herself, a formidable foe. If she sees through your lies, do you know what she will do to your body?" Alton gulped inaudibly. "I am willing to take the risk," he said, crossing his arms resolutely on the table. "What of House Hannett when the biggest lie is revealed?" Sinifee asked. "What advantage will we enjoy when Matron Malice knows the Faceless One's true identity?" "I understand," Alton answered, crestfallen but unable to refute Sinifee's logic. "Then what are we to do? What am I to do?" Matron Sinifee was already considering their next moves. "You will resign your tenure," she said at length. "Return to House Hannett, within my protection." "Such an act might also implicate House Hannett to Matron Malice," Alton reasoned. "It may," replied Sinifee, "but it is the safest route. I will go to Matron Malice in feigned anger, telling her to leave House Hannett out of her troubles. If she wishes to make an informant of a member of my family, then she should come to me for permission, though I'll not grant it this time." Sinifee smiled at the possibilities of such an encounter. "My anger, my fear alone, could implicate an even greater house against House Do'Urden, even a conspiracy between more than one house," she said, obviously enjoying the added benefits. "Matron Malice will certainly have much to think about, and much to worry about." Alton hadn't even heard Sinifee's last comments. The words about granting her permission this time had brought a disturbing notion into his mind. "And did she?" he dared to ask, though his words were barely audible. "What do you mean?" asked Sinifee, not following his thoughts. "Did Matron Malice come to you?" Alton continued, frightened but needing an answer. 30 years ago, did Matron Sinifee grant her permission for Gelrus Hannett to become an agent, an assassin to complete House de Vere's elimination. A wide smile spread across Sinife's face, but it vanished in the blink of an eye as she threw the table across the room, grabbed Alton by the front of his robes, and pulled him roughly to within an inch of her scowling visage. "Never confuse personal feelings with politics!" The tiny but obviously strong matron growled, her tone carrying the unmistakable weight of an open threat. "And never ask me such a question again!" She threw Alton to the floor, but didn't release him from her penetrating glare. Alton had known all along that he was merely a pawn in the intrigue between House Hanet and House Do'Urden, a necessary link for Matron Sinife to carry out her treacherous plans. Every now and then, though, Alton's personal grudge against House Do'Urden caused him to forget his lowly place in this conflict. Looking up now at Sinife's bared power, he realized that he had overstepped the bounds of his position. At the back end of the mushroom grove, the southern wall of the cavern that housed Menzoberranzan, was a small, heavily guarded cave. Beyond the iron-bound doors stood a single room, used only for gatherings of the city's 8 ruling matron mothers. The smoke of 100 sweet-smelling candles permeated the air. The matron mothers liked it that way. Almost half a century studying scrolls in the candlelight of Sorcerer, Alton did not mind the light, but he was indeed uncomfortable in the chamber. He sat at the back end of a spider-shaped table, in a small, unadorned chair reserved for guests of the council. Between the table's 8 hairy legs were the ruling matron mothers' thrones, all jeweled and dazzling in the candlelight. The matrons filed in, pompous and wicked, casting belittling glares at the male. Sinife, at Alton's side, put a hand on his knee and gave him a reassuring wink. She would not have dared to request a gathering of the ruling council if she was not certain of the worthiness of her news. The ruling matron mothers viewed their seats as honorary in nature, and did not appreciate being brought together except in times of crisis. At the head of the spider table sat Matron Bainry, the most powerful figure in all of Menzoberranzan, an ancient and withered female with malicious eyes and a mouth unaccustomed to smiles. "We are gathered, Sinife," Bainry said when all 8 members had found their appointed chairs. "For what reason have you summoned the council?" "To discuss a punishment," Sinife replied. "Punishment?" Matron Bainry echoed, confused. The recent years had been unusually quiet in the Drow City, without an incident since the Tekenduis Freth conflict. To the first matron's knowledge, no acts had been committed that might require a punishment, certainly none so blatant as to force the ruling council to action. "What individual deserves this?" "Not an individual," explained Matron Sinife. She glanced around at her peers, measuring their interest. "A house," she said bluntly. "Daemon Ashes Bernon, House Do'Urden." Several gasps of disbelief came in reply, as Sinife had expected. "House Do'Urden?" Matron Bainry questioned, surprised that any would implicate Matron Malice. By all of Bainry's knowledge, Malice remained in high regard with the Spider Queen, and House Do'Urden had recently placed 2 instructors in the academy. "For what crime do you dare to charge House Do'Urden?" asked one of the other matrons. "Are these words of fear, Sinife?" Matron Bainry had to ask. Several of the ruling matrons had expressed concern about House Do'Urden. It was well known that Matron Malice desired a seat on the ruling council, and, by all measures of the power of her house, she seemed destined to get it. "I have appropriate cause," Sinife insisted. "The others seem to doubt you," replied Matron Bainry. "You should explain your accusation. Quickly, if you value your reputation." Sinife knew that more than her reputation was at stake. In Menzoberranzan, a false accusation was a crime on par with murder. "We all remember the fall of House de Vere," Sinife began. 7 of us now gathered sat upon the ruling council beside Matron Guinevere de Vere." "House de Vere is no more," Matron Bainry reminded her. "Because of House Do'Urden," Sinife said bluntly. This time the gasps came out as open anger. "How dare you speak such words?" came one reply. 30 years, came another. "The issue has been forgotten." Matron Bainry quieted them all before the clamor rose into violent action, a not uncommon occurrence in the council chamber. "Sinafe," she said through the dry sneer on her lips. "One cannot make such an accusation. One cannot discuss such beliefs openly so long after the event. You know our ways. If House Do'Urden did indeed commit this act, as you insist, it deserves our compliments, not our punishment, for it carried it through to perfection. House de Vere is no more, I say. It does not exist." Alton shifted uneasily, caught somewhere between rage and despair. Sinafe was far from dismayed, though. This was going exactly as she had envisioned and hoped. "Oh, but it does!" she responded, rising to her feet. She pulled the hood from Alton's head. "In this person!" "Gelroos?" asked Matron Bainry, not understanding. "Not Gelroos," Sinafe replied. "Gelroos Hanet died the night House de Vere died. This male, Alton de Vere, assumed Gelroos's identity and position, hiding from further attacks by House Do'Urden." Bainry whispered some instructions to the matron at her right side, then waited as she went through the semantics of a spell. Bainry motioned for Sinafe to return to her seat, then faced Alton. "Speak your name," Bainry commanded. "I am Alton de Vere," Alton said, gaining strength from the identity he had waited so long to proclaim. "Son of Matron Guinevere and a student of Sorcerer on the night House Do'Urden attacked." Bainry looked to the matron at her side. "He speaks the truth," the matron assured her. Whispers sprang up all around the spider table, of amusement more than anything else. "That is why I summoned the ruling council," Sinafe quickly explained. "Very well, Sinafe," said Matron Bainry. "My compliments to you, Alton de Vere, on your resourcefulness and ability to survive. For a male, you have shown great courage and wisdom. Surely you both know that the council cannot exact punishment upon a house for a deed committed so long ago. Why would we so desire? Matron Malice Do'Urden sits in the favor of the Spider Queen. Her house shows great promise. You must reveal to us greater need if you wish any punishment against House Do'Urden." "I do not wish such a thing," Sinafe quickly replied. "This matter, 30 years removed, is no longer in the realm of the ruling house. House Do'Urden does indeed show promise, my peers, with 4 high priestesses and a host of other weapons, not the least of which being their second boy, Drizzt, first graduate of his class." She had purposely mentioned Drizzt, knowing that the name would strike a wound in Matron Bainry. Bainry's own prized son, Burgunyon, had spent the last 9 years ranked behind the wonderful young Do'Urden. "Then why have you bothered us?" Matron Bainry demanded, an unmistakable edge in her voice. "I ask you now to close your eyes," Sinafe purred. "Alton is a Hanet now, under my protection. He demands vengeance for the act committed against his family, and as a surviving member of the attacked family, he has the right of accusation." "House Hanet will stand beside him?" Matron Bainry asked, turning curious and amused. "Indeed," replied Sinafe. "Thus is House Hanet bound." "Vengeance," another matron quipped, also now more amused than angered. "Or fear. It would seem to my ears that the matron of House Hanet uses this pitiful de Vere creature for her own gain. House Do'Urden aspires to higher ranking, and Matron Malice desires to sit upon the ruling council. A threat to House Hanet, perhaps." "Be it vengeance or prudence, my claim, Alton de Vere's claim, must be deemed as legitimate," replied Sinafe. "To our mutual gain." She smiled wickedly and looked straight to the first matron. "To the gain of our sons, perhaps, in their quest for recognition." "Indeed," replied Matron Bainry, in a chuckle that sounded more like a cough. A war between Hanet and Do'Urden might be to everyone's gain, but not, Bainry suspected, as Sinafe believed. Malice was a powerful matron, and her family truly deserved a ranking higher than 9th. If the fight did come, Malice probably would get her seat on the council, replacing Sinafe. Matron Bainry looked around at the other matrons, and guessed from their hopeful expressions that they shared her thoughts. Let Hannett and Do'Urden fight it out. Whatever the outcome, the threat of matron malice would be ended. Perhaps, Bainry hoped, a certain young Do'Urden male would fall in battle, propelling her own son to the position he deserved. Then the first matron spoke the words Sinafe had come to hear, the silent permission of Menzoberranzan's ruling council. "The matter is settled, my sisters," Matron Bainry declared to the accepting nods of all at the table. "It is good that we never met this day." Chapter 19. Promises of Glory. "Have you found the trail?" Drizzt whispered, moving up beside the great panther. He gave Gwenwyvar a pat on the side and knew from the slackness of the cat's muscles that no danger was nearby. "Gone, then," Drizzt said, staring off into the emptiness of the corridor in front of them. "Wicked gnomes, my brother called them when we found the tracks by the pool. Wicked and stupid." He sheathed his scimitar and knelt beside the panther, his arm comfortable draped across Gwenwyvar's back. "They're smart enough to elude our patrol." The cat looked up as if he had understood every word, and Drizzt rubbed a hand roughly over Gwenwyvar's, his finest friend's, head. Drizzt remembered clearly his elation on the day, a 10-day before, when Dinan had announced, to Massage Hannett's outrage, that Gwenwyvar would be deployed at the patrol's point position beside Drizzt. "The cat is mine," Massage had reminded Dinan. "You are mine," Dinan, the patrol leader, had replied, ending any further debate. Whenever the figurine's magic would permit, Massage summoned Gwenwyvar from the astral plane and bid the cat to run up in front, bringing Drizzt an added degree of safety and a valued companion. Drizzt knew from the unfamiliar heat patterns on the wall that they had gone the limit of their patrol route. He had purposely put a lot of ground, more than was advised, between himself and the rest of the patrol. Drizzt had confidence that he and Gwenwyvar could take care of themselves, and with the others far behind, he could relax and enjoy the wait. The minutes Drizzt spent in solitude gave him the time he needed in his endless effort to sort through his confused emotions. Gwenwyvar, seemingly non-judgmental and always approving, offered Drizzt a perfect audience for his audible contemplations. "I begin to wonder the worth of it all," Drizzt whispered to the cat. "I do not doubt the value of these patrols. This 10-day alone we have defeated a dozen monsters that might have brought great harm to the city. But to what end?" He looked deeply into the panther's saucer eyes and found sympathy there, and Drizzt knew that Gwenwyvar somehow understood his dilemma. "Perhaps I still do not know who I am," Drizzt mused, "or who my people are. Every time I find a clue to the truth, it leads me down a path that I dare not continue upon, to conclusions I cannot accept." "You are Drow," came a reply behind them. Drizzt turned abruptly to see Dinan a few feet away, a look of grave concern on his face. "The gnomes have fled beyond our reach," Drizzt said, trying to deflect his brother's concerns. "Have you not learned what it means to be a Drow?" Dinan asked. "Have you not come to understand the course of our history and the promise of our future?" "I know of our history as it was taught at the Academy," Drizzt replied. "They were the very first lessons we received. Of our future, and more so of the place we now reside, though, I do not understand." "You know of our enemies," Dinan prompted. "Countless enemies," replied Drizzt with a heavy sigh. "They fill the holes of the Underdark, always waiting for us to let down our guard. We will not, and our enemies will fall to our power." "Ah, but our true enemies do not reside in the lightless caverns of our world," said Dinan with a sly smile. "Theirs is a world strange and evil." Drizzt knew who Dinan was referring to, but he suspected that his brother was hiding something. "The fairies," Drizzt whispered, and the word prompted a jumble of emotions within him. All of his life he had been told of his evil cousins, of how they had forced the Drow into the bowels of the world. Busily engaged in the duties of his everyday life, Drizzt did not think of them often, but when they came to mind, he used their name as a litany against everything he hated in his life. If Drizzt could somehow blame the surface elves, as every other Drow seemed to blame them, for the injustices of Drow society, he could find hope for the future of his people. Rationally, Drizzt had to dismiss the stirring legends of the Elven War as another of the endless stream of lies, but in his heart and hopes, Drizzt clung desperately to those words. He looked back to Dinan. "The fairies," he said again, "whatever they may be." Dinan chuckled at his brother's relentless sarcasm. It had become so commonplace. "They are as you have learned," he assured Drizzt. "Without worth and vile beyond your imagination. The tormentors of our people, who banished us in eons past, who forced—" "I know the tales," Drizzt interrupted, alarmed at the increasing volume of his excited brother's voice. Drizzt glanced over his shoulder. "If the patrol is ended, let us meet the others closer to the city. This place is too dangerous for such discussions." He rose to his feet and started back, Gwenweavar at his side. "Not as dangerous as the place I soon will lead you," Dinan replied with that same sly smile. Drizzt stopped and looked at him curiously. "I suppose you should know," Dinan teased. "We were selected because we are the finest of the patrol groups, and you have certainly played an important role in our attaining that honor." "Chosen for what?" "In a fortnight, we will leave Menzoberranzan," explained Dinan. "Our trail will take us many days and many miles from the city." "How long?" Drizzt asked, suddenly very curious. 10 days, maybe 3, replied Dinan, "but well worth the time. We shall be the ones, my young brother, who enact a measure of revenge upon our most hated foes, who strike a glorious blow for the Spider Queen." Drizzt thought that he understood, but the notion was too outrageous for him to be certain. "The elves," Dinan beamed. "We have been chosen for a surface raid." Drizzt was not as openly excited as his brother, unsure of the implications of such a mission. At last he would get to view the surface elves and face the truth of his heart and hopes. Something more real to Drizzt, the disappointment he had known for so many years, tempered his elation, reminded him that while the truth of the elves may bring an excuse to the dark world of his kin, it might instead take away something more important. He was unsure how to feel. "The surface," Alton mused. "My sister went there once, on a raid. A most marvelous experience, so she said." He looked at Mesaj, not knowing how to figure the forlorn expression on the young Hanet's face. "Now your patrol makes the journey. I envy you." "I'm not going," Mesaj declared. "Why?" Alton gasped. "This is a rare opportunity indeed. Menzoberranzan, to the anger of Lolth, I am certain, has not staged a surface raid in 2 decades. It may be 20 more years before the next, and by then you will no longer be among the patrols." Mesaj looked out from the small window of Alton's room in House Hanet, surveying the compound. "Besides," Alton continued quietly, "up there, so far from prying eyes, you might find the chance to dispose of 2 Do'Urdens. Why would you not go?" "Have you forgotten a ruling that you played a part in?" Mesaj asked, whirling on Alton accusingly. 2 decades ago, the Masters of Sorcerer decided that no wizards are to travel anywhere near the surface." "Of course," Alton replied, remembering the meeting. Sorcerer seemed so distant to him now, though he had been within the Hanet house for only a few 10 days. "We concluded that drow magic may work differently, unexpectedly under the open sky," he explained. "On that raid 20 years ago—" "I know the story," Mesaj growled, and he finished the sentence for Alton. "A wizard's fireball expanded beyond its normal dimensions, killing several drow. Dangerous side effects, you masters it. Though I've a belief that the wizard conveniently disposed of some enemies under the guise of an accident." "Yes," Alton agreed. "So said the rumors. In the absence of evidence." He let the thought go, seeing that he was doing little to comfort Mesaj. "That was so long ago," he said, trying to offer some hope. "Have you no recourse?" "None," Mesaj replied. "Things move so very slowly in Menzoberranzan. I doubt that the Masters have even begun their investigation into the matter." "A pity," Alton said. "It would have been the perfect opportunity." "No more of that," Mesaj scolded. "Matron Sinife has not given me her command to eliminate Drizzt Do'Urden or his brother. You have already been warned to keep your personal desires to yourself. When the matron bids me to strike, I will not fail her. Opportunities can be created." "You speak as if you already know how Drizzt Do'Urden will die," Alton said. A smile spread over Mesage's face as he reached into the pocket of his robe and produced the onyx figurine, his unthinking magical slave, which the foolish Drizzt had come to trust so dearly. "Oh, I do," he replied, giving the statuette of Gwenwyvar an easy toss, then catching it and holding it out on display. "I do." The members of the chosen raiding party quickly came to realize that this would be no ordinary mission. They did not go out on patrol from Menzoberranzan at all during the next 10 days. Rather, they remained day and night sequestered within a barrack of Melee Magthir. Through nearly every waking hour, the raiders huddled around an oval table in a conference room, hearing the detailed plans of their pending adventure, and over again, Master Hatchnet, the Master of Lore, spinning his tales of the vile elves. Drizzt listened intently to the stories, forcing himself, to fall within Hatchnet's hypnotic web. The tales had to be true. Drizzt did not know what he would hold on to preserve his principles if they were not. Dinan presided over the raid's tactical preparations, displaying maps of the long tunnels the group would travel, grilling them over and over until they had memorized the route perfectly. To this, as well, the eager raiders, except for Drizzt, listened intently, all the while fighting to keep their excitement from bursting out in a wild cheer. As the 10-day of preparations neared its end, Drizzt took note that one member of the patrol group had not been attending. At first, Drizzt had reasoned that Mesage was learning his duties in the raid in Sorcerer with his old masters. With the departure time fast approaching and the battle plans clearly taking shape, though, Drizzt began to understand that Mesage would not be joining them. "Where is our wizard?" Drizzt dared to ask in the late hours of one session. Dinan, not appreciating the interruption, glared at his brother. "Mesage will not be joining us," he answered, knowing that others might now share Drizzt's concern, a distraction they could not afford at such a critical time. "Sorcerer has decreed that no wizards may travel to the surface," Master Hatchnet explained. "Mesage Hannett will await your return to the city. It is a great loss to you indeed, for Mesage has proven his worth many times over. Fear not, though, for a cleric of Aractinolith shall accompany you." "What if—" Drizzt began above the approving whispers of the other raiders. Dinan cut his brother's thoughts short, easily guessing the question. "The cat belongs to Mesage," he said flatly. "The cat stays behind." "I could talk to Mesage," Drizzt pleaded. Dinan's stern glance answered the question once without the need for words. "Our tactics will be different on the surface," he said to all the group, silencing their whispers. "The surface of a world is distance, not the blind enclosures of bending tunnels. Once our enemies are spotted, our task will be to surround them, to close off the distances." He looked straight at his young brother. "We will have no need of a point guard, and in such a conflict a spirited cat could well prove more trouble than aid." Drizzt had to be satisfied with the answer. Arguing would not help, even if he could get Mesage to let him take the panther, which he knew in his heart he could not. He shook the brooding desires out of his head, and forced himself to hear his brother's words. This was to be the greatest challenge of Drizzt's young life, and the greatest danger. Over the final 2 days, as the battle plan became ingrained into every thought, Drizzt found himself growing more and more agitated. Nervous energy kept his palms moist with sweat, and his eyes darted about, too alert. Despite his disappointment over Gwenwyvar, Drizzt could not deny the excitement that bubbled within him. This was the adventure he had always wanted, the answer to his questions of the truth of his people. Up there, in the vast strangeness of that foreign world, lurked the surface elves, the unseen nightmare that had become the common enemy, and thus the common bond of all the drow. Drizzt would discover the glory of battle, exacting proper revenge upon his people's most hated foes. Always before, Drizzt had fought out of necessity, in training gyms or against the stupid monsters that ventured too near his home. Drizzt knew that this encounter would be different. This time, his thrusts and cuts would be carried by the strength of deeper emotions, guided by the honor of his people and their common courage and resolve to strike back against their oppressors. He had to believe that. Drizzt lay back in his cot the night before the raiding party's departure and brought his scimitars through some slow-motion maneuvers above him. "This time," he whispered aloud to the blades while marveling at their intricate dance even at such a slow speed. This time your ring will sound out in the song of justice." He placed his scimitars down at the side of his cot and rolled over to find some needed sleep. "This time," he said again, teeth clenched and eyes shining with determination. Were his proclamations his belief or his hope? Drizzt had dismissed the disturbing question the very first time it had entered his thoughts, having no more room for doubts than he had for brooding. He no longer considered the possibility of disappointment. It had no place in the heart of a drow warrior. To Dinan, though, studying Drizzt curiously from the shadows of the doorway, it sounded as if his younger brother was trying to convince himself of the truth of his own words. And there we go. That's going to be today's chapters. And I hope you all enjoyed. And I will be back tomorrow for another chapter before the weekend. Alright. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good day. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next time.